And welcome to the Anaheim Planning Commission meeting of January 27th, 2025. My name is Christopher Walker, chairperson of the Anaheim Planning Commission. As a reminder, the Planning Commission meetings are now broadcast on all channels, including the web, Anaheim TV Channel 3. First order of business is to salute our flag. Commissioner Tran Martin will lead us in the flag salute.
Thank you. If you could please join me. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, I will ask the Planning Commission Secretary to take a verbal roll call of all the Planning Commissioners.
Chair Walker,
Here.
Commissioner Abdul Raham, Commissioner Lieberman,
Here.
Commissioner Perez,
Here.
Commissioner Tran Martin,
Here.
Commissioner Castro,
Here.
Commissioner Kelly.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We have a newly appointed Planning Commissioner, Abdul Majid and Abdul Rahman. I screwed it up, didn't I? I had it down, I'm sorry, AB. And we also have two reappointed Planning Commissioners who will be sworn in. Our City Clerk, Teresa Bass, will administer the oath of allegiance. Is she here? She's here. There she is. We're going to go down. Sorry about that. Christopher Walker. Do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true
faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well
and faithfully discharge
the duties I am about to enter. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's way too long.
Just need to get a few signatures here before we continue.
Very fancy. Hello, okay, back on. If you would please silence your electronic communication devices so they don't disrupt the proceeding, we would all appreciate that. The doors at the back of the room are automatic. They open when you get close to them and they don't close until you walk down the hall. Please move away from the automatic doors to allow them to close. Today we have two public hearing items on our agenda as well as a workshop. I would ask and everyone who is going to speak on any item to complete a yellow speaker card and give it to staff if you have not already done so. The cards can be found on the table at the entrance. When you fill out the speaker card, please identify the items you are speaking on and pick the appropriate checked box at the bottom of the form as either applicant, in favor, in opposition, or neither. In accordance with the Planning Commission procedures and rules of order, speakers will be called forward in this order, and then in the order received for each designation. Please keep your remarks as brief as you can. We are influenced more by the content than the length of their presentations. First, we provide an opportunity for any member of the public to speak on items of interest to the public that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Commission. Is there anybody who wishes to speak? Seeing none. Sorry. Prior to the beginning of the public hearing, I would ask any planning commissioners for any disclosures they wish to make regarding any of the items on today's agenda. No disclosures?
I have a disclosure. For item 2, I drove by the property on Lemon Street.
Anyone else? Very good. I will now begin the public hearing and ask for staff to present item 1. Jose?
Yes, good evening, Chair Walker and members of the Planning Commission. The item before you tonight is a conditional use permit to allow for the expansion of an existing self-storage facility with an increase in the maximum floor area ratio. This item was continued from the January 13th Planning Commission meeting to allow the applicant additional time to respond to comments from the previous public hearing. The project site, shown in yellow, is located at the northeast corner of Catella and Humor Drive. Surrounding land uses include residential uses to the north and east, commercial uses to the south, and a church to the west. In August of 1995, the Planning Commission approved Conditional Use Permit 3779, allowing the establishment of a self-storage facility. Since its approval, the facility has remained operational. The site is currently developed with an existing self-storage building, a detached one-story building, and a surface parking lot used for outdoor storage of vehicles. The applicant proposes a new detached self-storage building with a total floor area of 52,871 square feet. This new building would have 3 levels, including a subterranean level, and would increase the storage facility's capacity. The new building would require the demolition of a detached accessory building and surface parking lot. The proposal would eliminate the existing outdoor storage vehicle area. The hours of operation for the self-storage facility would be consistent with the current operations. Access would be taken from 2 driveways on Humor Drive. New landscaping would be provided along Humor Drive and along the north and east property lines adjacent to the residential uses. The design of the building would use various building materials that would include corrugated metal panels, concrete masonry blocks, and metal canopies painted to incorporate colors of the self-storage brand to complement the existing building. The expansion of the self-storage facility is permitted subject to the approval of a conditional use permit. The proposed expansion with the increased FAR has been designed to accommodate the new building footprint, circulation, and required setbacks. The proposed 25-foot high building would be set back 53 feet from the northern property line, exceeding the minimum 51-foot setback requirement. The facility would continue to operate during standard business hours, providing access to customers during limited hours to prevent noise or disturbances during the nighttime to nearby residences. The hours of operation would be consistent with hours of other commercial uses in the vicinity. The project is designed with adequate access, on-site circulation, gate queuing, and parking to accommodate the proposed expansion. A trip generation analysis and vehicles mile travel screening evaluation was reviewed and determined it would not have a significant impact on traffic. The project site is within half a mile of a major transit stop, making it subject to California Assembly Bill 2097, which eliminates minimum parking requirements. Although no formal analysis is required, the applicant conducted one, showing a peak parking demand of 11 spaces. With 21 spaces proposed, the project exceeds the demand and provides adequate capacity. The graphic on the screen here demonstrates truck turning movements for a fire truck, moving truck, and passenger vehicles. The applicant conducted community outreach in June of 2023. The site manager and a consultant contacted individuals and residents in the vicinity to explain the project. Self-storage facilities are subject to City Council Policy Number 7.2 to ensure that such facilities are not sited on land that was suitable for more productive land uses. The policy was adopted in September of 1998 after the existing facility was approved in 1995. Per the policy, self-storage facilities may continue to be permitted and expanded subject to the approval of a CUP. At the January 13th Planning Commission meeting, public comments addressed illegal dumping in the public right-of-way, dumping onto adjacent trash bins, and construction vehicle parking. The applicant clarified the following points. Illegal dumping. Extra space storage has a policy against unpermitted dumping. Tenants are informed during lease signing that disposal on site is prohibited. If items are abandoned, staff reviews security footage and gate logs to identify and contact the responsible tenant. Any disposal costs incurred are charged to the tenant. Security footage will also monitor the facility's street frontages. A condition of approval has been added that requires extra space storage to remove any property placed outside of the facility within 24 hours. Affected tenants will receive a 60-day notice to vacate before any construction were to begin, with assistance in relocating to other available extra space storage locations. With respect to parking during construction, efforts will be made to keep parking on site. If necessary, off-site parking will be secured to prevent impacting surrounding street parking. A condition of approval addressing parking has been included in the draft resolution as well. An initial study and mitigated negative declaration were prepared to evaluate the environmental impacts of the proposed project in compliance with the CEQA requirements. The ISM&D was circulated for a public review of 20 days and was made available on the city's website and at the Anaheim Public Library. One comment letter was received focusing on off-site design elements like bicycle paths, pedestrian lighting, wayfinding signage, and connections to nearby transportation facilities, but no substantial revisions were required. Mitigation measures addressing cultural resources, tribal cultural resources, and construction noise have been recommended as conditions of approval, ensuring that all project impacts are reduced to less than significant levels. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the project and the mitigated negative declaration subject to the updated conditions of approval. The proposed self-storage facility expansion is compatible with the surrounding residential and commercial businesses. The environmental review concluded that the project would not have a significant environmental impact with adoption of the mitigation measures. This concludes staff's presentation. Staff and the applicant team is available for any questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Lieberman.
Thank you for that report. Okay, so looking at the drawings, the pre-existing facility with the addition of the extra square footage, they're not adding a single parking space, correct?
To clarify, are you inquiring about the existing parking conditions and propose
Right.
the difference there? I'll confirm in just a moment here.
Okay, and instead of doing that, the parking looks severely inadequate. And I do understand that there is a state law which waives the minimum parking requirement due to the proximity of the facility to a transit stop. But I don't understand why a storage facility would fall under that type of legislation. So can you explain it to me, please.
You're referring to AB, I'm sorry, 2097, that was approved by the legislature, and it applies to residential and commercial properties, development in particular.
Wow, okay. That's all I need, thank you.
Anyone else? How many parking spaces are there on the new?
So the new proposal includes 21. At the time that the original entitlement was approved, they were providing approximately 75 spaces on site. That was based on the parking requirement at the time.
Okay, and part of those spaces were taken up by storage of vehicles, were they not? Or am I misunderstanding that?
In reviewing the aerials, it looks like it would include those outdoor spaces, correct?
And there's going to be no storage of vehicles anymore. That's going away.
As the application was received, there's no proposal at this time to have any continued outdoor storage vehicles.
Okay. Any other questions? I'm going to open the public hearing, and would the applicant come forward? Okay, I appreciate that. Do you have a presentation, or?
I do not. I just wanted to be here to answer any questions or assist clarifying anything on the project.
Okay. Does any commissioners have any questions? I guess we're good. I did have one question. Last time at the hearing, we had one of your adjacent property owners complain about dumping trash in the trash bin, their trash bin specifically. Can you explain a little more what, I've read your answers and I wasn't entirely clear. You're going to monitor the cameras on the outside of the property as well as the inside and enforce it? Can you explain that a little more to me?
Yeah, actually, I went by and visited the property earlier today and spoke with the site manager. And we have camera views out on Humor Drive that view there, and they record 24/7. So whenever we're aware or made aware of any sort of abandoned property or things going on around the property that shouldn't be happening, we have the ability to review that camera footage and then also compare it with our gate logs to determine if it was somebody that came onto our property and then abandoned that on their way out or vice versa.
Does those cameras give you the ability to see them dumping in the dumpster in the next property?
There is a limited view of that particular area of the site, but obviously if there was some activity that was happening there and the property owner came over, they're definitely welcome to partner with, site management, and we can kind of determine what happened from there for sure.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I have no more questions. Does anybody else have any? Oh,
And how long is that camera footage kept for? Is 24
About
hours?
30 days, I think we've got 30 days worth of footage typically.
good? No more? Okay. Can the secretary call forward public comments? Thank you, sir. You can sit
Yeah,
down.
Thank you.
Yes, we do have cards for this item. We are going to call them by the actual card. Paul Hike?
Pronounced hike, like a long walk. I happen to be one of the tenants in there, and they've got a gate that I'm supposed to be able to use to get into where I'm storing my RV, and I can't get in there because it's off track, and it could be wedged where somebody could wiggle in. 1. 2, during construction, where are they going to be putting RVs besides on that property? Do we have other locations that let us park RVs in your system? Like Manchester? Do we have any of those sites available? Is there going to be funds for relocation? I haven't heard any of that, and I've been there a long time. And I'm trying to get my trailers ready to pull, and I want some answers. And close offices on Sunday, particularly when that's the 1st or the 10th, that's ludicrous. It's 1st to the 10th is their window for paying rent. You come in on a Sunday, with Monday being the 10th, after the 10th, you have a late fee. I don't hear any of that coming through. And the other thing is, they have a transformer from the city on property on the back corner away from Huber, and they also have a microwave tower as a tenant and tower is installed. What's going to happen with that? Where's it going to go to?
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Nico Derbitas.
Thank you. Good evening, I should say. I spoke last time, and I want to thank you again for the opportunity. Listed up there, I put that we're the family that have the next door property with the dumpster. I've indicated last time that we have constant dumping, especially of bulk items out of there that are really put next to the dumpster in front of the extra space storage facility. But it really sort of becomes our problem, and we have to contact Republic Trash to come out and pick it up. It takes about 10 days to 14 days to even arrange to have that done. Now, I'm listed as an opponent. I want to tell the folks with the extra space storage that we're business-friendly folks, we're entrepreneurs, I don't want it to be seen that we're opposing your expansion for business, but we are opposed to the trash situation there. And I understand the gentleman indicated that cameras will monitor it and that we could work with them, but that's a little bit of a reactive rather than a proactive approach. I will just say, and I don't think it's realistic because we have, as I indicated last time, my father, who's an elderly gentleman, couldn't be here today. He really is the one who's there on a daily basis, and he has gone into extra space storage and indicated that he's had these problems. I have personally seen contractors come out of there and walk over and dump stuff in our dumpster. So my concern is we're expanding this facility from 474 to 871 some odd storage. Without a trash dumpster on the facility or any way for folks who are storing items to dispose of things, I just don't think is realistic. And it's going to leave the problem again on us, the burden on us and our tenants to have to react to every time there's this dumping. And I just don't think it's a good way to solve this problem. I will say this, on the way here today, I passed up on Anaheim Boulevard here not far, there's a U-Haul storage, self-storage facility, and they rent trucks out, et cetera. I would say that they have about maybe 100 storage units, and I specifically looked in there. There was a blue Republic trash dumpster inside. Okay, that facility is probably, 1/8 of what this 900 storage facility will be. Again, we're not opposed to business. We're very business friendly. We appreciate businesses who want to expand and do well for themselves, but we can't face the burden of having to take care of this trash problem and to put the burden on our tenants, okay? So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Jose, there's a trash dumpster in that facility, is there not? A new one that's going in?
Yes, as part of the design, there's a new trash enclosure.
Thank you. Did you want something?
No further speakers on this item.
I'd like to ask a question of Nico. Sorry, I didn't write down your last name.
No problem. I've been called worse.
Do you, okay, so our chair just asked if there are dumpsters on site of the storage place, and the answer may yet be yes, but I do understand that they're not allowed to use them. So
Yeah,
That's
if
a
I could just
problem.
kindly, and I
Okay.
forgot a pointer last time, I did bring a laser pointer. If I could ask Mr. Barriga to put the model that they had, or the plan?
let me ask you my question, and it's basically, have you thought of, or do you have any ideas for a solution to this problem?
Sure. I mean, I'm not I'm not a storage expert. We deal with residential apartment buildings and taking care of our tenants. But how about have a couple dumpsters within your site if you're gonna have 900 storage units? I mean, I've never owned a storage unit, but let's face it, people are bringing in things, taking things out. You don't think that they're gonna have some trash or maybe a large, you know what, I don't need this couch, and, you know, I don't need this chair, I don't need this refrigerator anymore, and I'm just gonna dump it at, guess what? The dumpster that's right next to the exit, okay? That's my concern.
Okay.
And so I think last time there was a discussion here, the applicant wasn't here, but there was a discussion about having a large bulk item place within the facility to arrange for the pickup, and maybe that might be the solution, but having no dumpsters available for customers of 900 units, I think is unrealistic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, would it be feasible for you to move your dumpsters to another section where they wouldn't?
And I can tell you, if I can show you on the plan what exactly is there so that you understand, we can't put it at a different site because it's at the corner of, basically on Humor, right behind a fence that backs up to the storage facility, and there's trailers and construction or, commercial trucks and whatnot that are parked back there. But the rest of it is parking for our tenants.
Okay.
So there's not really, and you have to have it accessible for Republic Trash. So there's no real solution. We don't have room to put it somewhere else. Yeah.
Okay. So I have a question for the applicant. Would you be open to adding trash bins for large pickup?
Actually, we've been quite successful in partnering with other local businesses when the dumping does occur to have it removed by the tenants. It becomes quite a pileup of items and other discarded things, and it happens fairly quickly. If we were to allow people to dispose of their items on there, it'd be quickly turned into a very large trash dump, and I don't think anybody in the surrounding neighborhood or area would appreciate that. So we make it very clear to our tenants when they arrive that they're to take away and dispose of their items off-site.
Okay, so how are you going to monitor your tenants?
We've
Monitor
got
them from dumping in their trash bin?
Yeah, so we've got cameras all over the facility, so we can keep track of what goes on throughout the times that we're open and closed on the facility. And if we find that people are violating policies, discarding items, doing things that they shouldn't be doing, we're able to review camera footage and gate logs to track down who the tenant is that was responsible for that.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
This is a question more for Scott and Leone. Is there any wording that we could put in the conditions of approval that state that no dumping of any large materials is allowed?
I'm going to ask Scott to speak to the condition that was added, which was meant to address it. But certainly, I mean, we can require signage.
Yeah, we could certainly also add the signage. Looking up which conditions they were, we did add a new condition of approval, condition number 53. It said any trash, discarded materials, or items placed outside of the self-storage property shall be removed within 24 hours by the business owner or operator.
Okay,
That addresses the right-of-way trash,
Yeah.
not the adjacent property.
is there a way that we could expand that to address the neighboring properties? And then two, how would we enforce condition number 53?
Well, I'll answer the first part first. Enforcing that would be, we would ask for the participation of the adjacent property owner by virtue of calling our code enforcement and letting us know if there's been discarded trash or material outside, as we've seen in some previous pictures outside of the self-storage facility. We would put the onus on the self-storage facility as well, as soon as they see it, that they need to call. We looked at this similar to our condition of approval requiring graffiti removal. So while the business owner didn't create the graffiti, they are responsible for removing that graffiti within 24 hours, and we looked at this in the same manner. The first part of your question was about compelling, how do we ensure that they enforce this if trash is dumped on the adjacent property? I think that would require the adjacent property owner to notify extra space storage and say, I've just witnessed, or there's trash that's been discarded not by my tenants but by your tenants, and it needs to be removed. And then we would need to, depend on the cooperation from the self-storage operator.
And then the enforcement from this would be through code enforcement, correct?
Yeah, it would be. And I think I'd have to take a larger look at it, but I think we could trade it in the same manner of dumping on in the right of way as dumping on somebody else's private property.
Okay, perfect. And then actually, I had a question for Mr. Nico. If you have cameras that show or anything like that?
It's an 9-unit building. I mean, we can't pay to have cameras up, and a lot of this dumping is going to occur overnight. I mean, it's not.
No, I get that. I was just.
And I will just say this, with that suggestion, putting up signs doesn't do anything. I mean, believe me, folks, we have other apartments, and we put up signs. It does not stop illegal dumping. We have a property near the railroads in the back, and there's dumping that occurs all the time. You call code enforcement up, they're going to tell you I imagine they're just going to tell you, call up Republic Trash. And I do that anyway, and it takes 2 weeks for them to come out and pick it up. Putting up signs is not a solution. They need to have dumpsters within their facility.
Yeah, so there's none of your tenants have rings, cameras, or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
And it's the backside of their units that faces, it's the backside second story, there's garages, and then there's parking lot, and that's where, I have photos that I can send to Mr. Barriga that give you a better idea, and I can show you on the site map, but there's no front doors or anything like that. It's a courtyard type of facility, and it's the back of their units that are facing the extra storage. But again, signs, they don't stop this. So, thank you.
Commissioner Kelly.
Oh, I had a question for the applicant. Sorry, bringing you back up. You said you had cameras on site. Are those cameras new, or have they been there?
They've been there. They've been there existing.
Okay, so I guess what I'm not understanding is, we're hearing from a neighbor
Absolutely.
that the process you described hasn't worked. You have the cameras, but maybe someone's not watching, or how are we going to resolve that? If you have the ability through the cameras to see what's going on, how do we address the issue?
I think it's just a cooperative effort between the neighbor and our site management. I was actually there today and kind of quizzed them about that because I was wondering about that very same thing. Have you spoken or have you heard from a neighbor or anybody about the dumping going on, or maybe some items being deposited in someone else's dumpster? And he wasn't aware of that. But definitely, we're used to working with our neighbors and all the communities that we're in, and it wouldn't be a problem at all for us to partner with that apartment owner and to try and resolve what's going on there.
I mean, does your manager drive in that entrance every day that he could see it, or is it not visible from there?
It's on the far north side of the property, a little bit of a distance from where the office is. So, and it's behind almost behind a wall a little bit. Some of it isn't. So it might not be the easiest to notice at times.
But he could check the cameras, you said?
Absolutely,
Every
absolutely.
day, comes in,
Yeah,
just checks the camera?
absolutely. If someone came in and alerted us to some abandoned property, we're more than happy to check into that for sure.
Could he check it if the neighbor didn't alert you to the?
Yeah,
They
absolutely.
just come in every day and kind of check
Yeah,
those cameras?
yeah, they generally do kind of a sweep of the camera footage on the overnight anyway to make sure if there's anything suspicious going on or things out of the ordinary, for sure. That's a typical activity for them to do.
Thanks.
So my question is actually for staff. So we have things like minimum parking standards and things like that. For commercial development, are there minimum standards to the number and size of dumpster, trash, recycle bins in commercial?
There is, but that's determined by the Streets and Sanitation Division in Public Works. So when we review these projects, we submit the project to them, and they let us know what's required based upon the size of the business.
Thank you.
I have a suggestion for the Nico. So Anaheim has an app called My Anaheim. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but you download it on your phone, and you can submit issues like this when it comes to like code enforcement, and take a photo and upload it, and those are tracked. So you would have we would have a tracking of all the complaints.
Right.
And
I've
and the city
reported
take-
graffiti cleanup all the time. I mean, I've
Okay.
done it for, 15, 20 years. And with all due respect to the city of Anaheim, it's just not a fast process. So, again, I don't understand the basic concept here of 900 storage spaces and units with not one trash dumpster available to their customers. That's going to create a problem for us.
But I'm familiar with storage unit facilities, and many don't have trash bins. So I was surprised that they're even going to put one in this facility. It's part of the staff report, but many don't have trash bins.
I don't know if that's one available for their customers or if it's one just available for the staff or the actual facility. Because I did note there is one trash on the site, but again, if you see where if the map was brought up, I have a laser point. I could show you exactly where the exit is of that facility is right next to our dumpster, and it's a problem. I'm telling you, I take pictures almost every 2 weeks and send them to Republic Trash. It's just constant. So, thank you.
I want to talk to Leonie again, back to AB. Sorry, I didn't write the number down. All right, I'm sitting here thinking about this, and, a storage facility, I understand that the state wants to reduce parking for commuter people. And, including retail, you're gonna take the bus and go to the mall. But this type of business, people are in and out of there with their stuff, with boxes, with their household goods. And it's ludicrous to think somebody's gonna be bringing the bus in and their sofa. Okay, but did I hear you say that it applies to retail?
It applies to commercial and industrial. And just a little bit of background, it certainly was introduced to promote residential development and the reuse of property. But as the bill winded through the legislature, there was also a suggestion that commercial and industrial properties should similarly be opened up because the issue of parking it was based on a study which talked about how there's an oversupply of parking. Put that aside, certainly there's nothing in AB 2097 that says that the property owner can't voluntarily provide parking. And in this instance, they did so because they can't really have a storage business without the ability for their tenants to get on site. And as indicated by planning, there was also an analysis done because not all tenants will be on site at all times. So in this instance, we did review this against the backdrop of what Sacramento has said we must do and what we're able to do. And then we provided the information on the supplemental parking analysis that shows this should work, but we cannot require them to provide our minimum parking requirements. And certainly the owner of this property wants to have a business that's successful, and if their tenants cannot access, then that will not be successful.
All righty, thank you for the clarification.
So I want to thank the applicant for coming in and answering our questions and saying that you're going to work with the neighbors. I'm going to make a motion to approve of the project as it is.
I will second.
Okay. We have.
With the additional conditions that were added and included in your package.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any discussion on the?
I'm hearing the next door neighbor loud and clear. And he's already pulling his hair out. And they're more than doubling the size, so I can't approve this as is. Thank you.
Anyone else? We're voting. We weren't voting, but okay. I wanted to say something before we voted. I would like to propose an alternative that we include the provisions we were briefly discussing. Not only that they, remove within 24 hours anything put in front of it, but remove anything that can be shown in the neighbor's trash can within 24 hours. And I don't know, Leonie, if I can do this. Also, I'd like to add a provision that they actually have to physically walk the front of the thing and not just rely on the cameras to see what's been dumped.
So I do think the conditions that are included in your packet, specifically condition number 3 does talk about items placed off-site. So that would address the neighboring property. In addition, on-site, there's no storage allowed. So we have your first 2 issues. Your third item was about walking the site. I would defer to the operating conditions and planning. If you could craft one which would require a, I don't know if it's a visual survey at a regular basis.
I might not be able to think of the wording on top of the spot, but we can come up with a condition of approval that would require the applicant to provide a visual inspection of the property, let's say at close of business each night and at open of business the next day, each morning, to identify any trash or anything that has been dumped outside of the property, like in the right-of-way. I think that would have to be in concert with their footage reviewing trash, because I think it might be a little difficult for them to determine when they do a walkthrough if the trash in the neighbor's dumpster belongs to those in apartments or if it belonged to them. But perhaps, if and being a good neighbor, if they identify that there's a couch sticking out of this thing, they can look at their footage and understand, oh, look, we saw a couch go moving down the street. That would indicate that to them that was from their facility. So a condition of approval that would require a visual inspection of the property, specifically along Humor Drive, at close of business and at beginning of business each day, and in conjunction with review of their security footage.
Okay. My thought process is that they may look at the video, they may not. If they have to actually walk out there, they'll actually do it. or they're more likely to do it. And that's all I have to say. I don't know if someone's going to second or not.
I was going to second, and then to your reasoning that we do have the visual inspection as a conditional use permit. So if there's ever an issue that does arise, we have it on the books. So I second it.
Just a matter of procedure. Would the maker of the first motion be amenable to a modification as suggested by Commissioner Walker on that third point, which was the visual surveyor operations and a new added condition?
Yes.
Okay, so now we have an amended motion. The second on the first motion, you're okay with that? So the motion will be as presented, again with the added conditions requiring the removal off-site, no storage on-site, and a visual survey as a matter of operations that will be drafted by Planning Commission and added to the packet. It might be appropriate to ask the applicant to ensure that they are comfortable with these new, or have any questions.
Yeah. Will the applicant come forward? I know it was a lot of talk back and forth, but
Yeah.
did you get that?
No, absolutely, no, we are agreeable to that.
Okay.
And you take the padlock off of your lock.
Does anyone want to discuss? I guess.
And if I may, Chair, I would, taking what Assistant City Attorney Mavahel said, I believe we can do that all with the existing condition 53, and would propose something to the effect of any trash, discarded materials, or items placed outside the self-storage property, including at adjacent properties, shall be removed within 24 hours by business owner or operator, and a visual survey shall be conducted daily to ensure compliance.
That sounds great. I guess we can vote.
Six yes votes with one no vote. Commissioner Lieberman. The motion carries.
Thank you. Congratulations, sir. I hope this works out with the neighbors. Sir, thank you. I understand. You could discuss with him outside if you want. Thank you. Did I ever close did I close the public hearing? I don't know if I did. I'm going to close the public hearing just for the record. Did I? I don't know.
I think you did because we only had 2 public comments.
Yeah. I don't know. Moving on to item 2, Amanda Loffer. Hello, how are you?
Good, thank you. Good evening, Chair Walker and members of the Planning Commission. I am Amanda Loffer, and I will be presenting item number 2 this evening. This item comes before the Planning Commission as an appeal of a denial by the Director of Planning and Building. The applicant requests approval of exterior alterations to a Mills Act property located at 402 North Lemon to permit and retain the replacement of all wood windows with vinyl windows. The project site is located at 402 North Lemon Street at the intersection of Lemon Street and Adele Street, directly across from Pearson Park. The property is in the RS2 single-family residential zone and is designated for medium-density residential in the city's general plan land use element. The property is surrounded by multiple family and single-family residential uses to the north and south along Lemon Street, commercial uses to the east, and Pearson Park to the west. This property was awarded a Mills Act contract in 2003. The Mills Act is a state law that was enacted in 1972 that encourages the preservation and maintenance of qualified historic structures and allows cities to enter into agreements with property owners to preserve and maintain those historic structures in exchange for a reduction in their property tax calculation. In May 2024, staff became aware of work being done at the property without the benefit of city review and permits. The unpermitted work included exterior alterations consisting of the replacement of all existing wood windows with vinyl windows. The pictures on this slide show views of the two-story home from adjacent public streets with the historic wood windows. It should be noted that during the last cycle of Mills Act inspections, the property owner did receive a notice of noncompliance to remove the visible window AC units and to repaint the house, including the windows. The pictures on this slide show the condition after the wood windows were replaced with the new vinyl windows. The municipal code and Mills Act contract requires property owners to notify the city and obtain approval of modifications to ensure consistency with the terms of the contract and Mills Act guidelines. Pursuant to the municipal code, the planning and building director may approve exterior alterations to a Mills Act property subject to the findings displayed on this slide. As noted in the analysis section of the staff report, the replacement of the existing wood windows with vinyl windows is not consistent with the purpose and intent of the Secretary of Interior standards or the citywide historic preservation plan design guidelines for historic properties. The standards and guidelines state that historic material should be restored whenever possible, and if replacement is needed, it should be replaced with in-kind material. In addition, the window replacement would affect a character-defining feature of the home, as the wood windows are a character-defining feature of Mills Act properties. Lastly, the vinyl windows are not consistent with the Dutch colonial architectural style of the home, which historically featured wood windows. The applicant stated in their letter of request that the window replacement was completed due to the poor condition of the windows and concerns over continued insurance coverage. Staff has not been made aware of any insurance coverage issues due to wood windows by other Mills Act owners, and also provided the applicant with information on insurance coverage through a company that specializes in coverage for historic properties. Based on the analysis included in the staff report and the findings contained in the draft denial resolution, staff recommends that the Planning Commission uphold the director's decision and denies the request to permit and retain the exterior modification of vinyl windows at the Mills Act home. Staff did receive a total of 5 letters of opposition, which includes a letter from the Historic Preservation Committee. This correspondence was provided to you before the meeting and is also printed out for you on the dais. This concludes my presentation. City staff is available to answer any questions, and the applicant is also present. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle?
Just a quickie. Hi, Amanda. Nice to see you up here today.
Hello.
Do we have any Mills Act houses in the city with vinyl windows other than the one in question?
There could be some that may have vinyl windows that are not visible to the street. It is something that property owners can get a notice of noncompliance for if they replace wood windows with the vinyl windows.
If the vinyl windows are like in the back of the house and not visible from the street, would they have gotten the Mills Act in the first place?
If they're not visible from the street, yes. It's been City of Anaheim's policy to review Mills Act properties as visible from the public rights of way.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Will the applicant please come forward? Good evening, Mr. Taramino. What would you like to tell us?
I sent you an email with all this in it. These are packets for the. I think that picture is horrible, and I think I'm ashamed because it looks horrible, and I don't blame you. I'd throw me out on a rail right now because the photos in that is not what the house looks like. You're about to see what it actually looks like. Nick, would you hold up photo number 5? It's the very last one. So there's going to show to the audience and also to the board. So this is after. That's what it looks like now. I just want you to notice the color of the windows, and I'm going to go into slight detail. Okay, and then you're getting a packet that has these photos, 8.5 by 11 in your packet. It's coming around to you now in just a moment. So again, I completely agree with staff's recommendation relative to the way those photos look. I would not want that in my neighborhood. It's horrible. My name is Bill Taramina, and my family has been residents and business owners in Anaheim for over 75 years. I've personally restored over 40 properties in the Anaheim colony area. I raised my family just a few blocks from here, and I continue to invest all my time and financial resources in making our city a better place. Basically, I'm obsessed with trying to make things better. I appreciate and respect the City of Anaheim Planning and Building Departments and their responsibility, and for the last 50 years, I have personally worked alongside staff in over 100 construction and restoration projects here in Anaheim. My family takes a great pride in setting a high standard for other property owners to follow. And what was shown here is a very poor example, and I'm very sorry that that photo was taken before the house was painted. I appreciate each of your planning commissioners as you're volunteering your service to our community, and I also thank you for the chance to have a chance to explain the situation regarding my home. I've owned this home for 25 years, and it's an integral part of a larger portion of adjacent properties in the same zip code, including the Colony House, Auto Zone, and my own home at 128 West Sycamore, which is also adjacent. All my properties in the colony are insured under a master policy with separate bundles of coverage for commercial, multifamily, and single-family homes. This is a rental home, and that's why it's different. If I was living in the home, I wouldn't have had the problem, but it's because it's a rental home and the exposure is different. And those of you that are attorneys, this coverage is very special. And I'm about that close from having it canceled as a result of what's happened in LA, but that has nothing to do with this hearing. But since I have many types of coverage within that bundle of insurance, every time a tenant moves out and/or an annual renewal, I have my homes inspected. Such was the case here. When the insurance company appeared at the property and the inspector came there, they found the following things. They said, remove the single pane, non-tempered glass for life safety. And we all know what happens when a window breaks and it's not tempered. Number 2, all the windows have to be operable to meet fire access. They weren't. They said to raise the guardrail in the back, and you'll see a picture of that momentarily, because because it was a fall hazard. There's a patio in the back upstairs. Repair the drywall damage from water intrusion near the windows, and replace the decking surfaces to eliminate trip and fall as well. So now, and with that, I did way more than they requested. And I'm ashamed of how that property looked and the fact that I got a violation. That tenant was there for 5 years. And I'm going to be honest with you, we never noticed the problem. And I apologize publicly for that. In any case, so now what's the deal? Why are we here? Let's address the windows and the facts that we're here. I had to make the windows safe and operable, yet I had to keep the architectural integrity of the building intact. I did that. Number 2, I desperately tried to save the windows sashes, but they were rotted beyond repair. This is just the sashes, that's all that was replaced, not the whole window, just the part with the glass in it that goes up and down, that's called the sash. The ropes, the pulleys, the whole channel that rides in was gone. In order to do this right, I would have had to rip the windows out of the house, and that would have been a structural issue. I did not do that. I only replaced the glass part that goes up and down. Okay, Sorry, I lost my place. Okay, here we go. I was able to save all the interior and exterior window sills, all the wooden window casings, and all the interior and exterior wooden trim. So more than 50% of those windows are wood, but I'm not going to argue with staff. I've never done that, nor will I start today. I had new custom-made sashes built with the muntins to match exactly the way the originals were. And on that horrible picture that shows the white sashes, you'll see that the muntins are exactly the same as they were before they were replaced. These were custom-made windows. Everything was painted to match exactly architectural design of the original parts, along with the texture of the paint to simulate what it would look like if it was wood. And finally, I believe that the completed project, it resulted in the home being more architecturally and historically significant than it was in the past. I'm surprised that I was even able to have the Mills Act with the way that that house looked. Again, I should have been thrown out on a rail. So now on page 3 of the packet you have in front of you, I actually sent you an email with this PDF. I don't know if you can put it on the screen or if it's too late to do that, because it'll be a big picture so the audience can see what I'm talking about. See if and forgive me for the interruption here. Just see if it comes up on Amanda's email. I sent you 2 emails. One just has the big pictures, the other one has the PDF of what I'm about to read. It's not getting it, okay. All right, suffice it to say then, Nick, go to picture number 1, please. And forgive me, the audience can't see this, but maybe you can show them so they can see. Okay. So I'm just going to read what it says there, and then I want you to show the audience too. These are my neighbors. It had an incorrect front door color. It had peeling paint. It had incorrect window air conditioners hanging out. It had an unsafe 36-inch guardrail in the back around the patio, and it had incorrect spotlights on the walls. Horrific. Bill Taramina is ashamed of himself. Next, go to picture number 3, please. I'm sorry, number 2. Number 2. Thank you. Yep, and then there you go, thank you. Now we're looking at the inside of a window, and this is showing where the drywall was repaired around where it was leaking. So what you see here, you see the interior window. This is typical of all the windows. And notice that all the wood portions that were retained, that being the original wood sill, the original wood casing, the original wood trim, all the drywall that was around it. You can see the drywall tape on the floor there during construction. That was all repaired. I didn't pull a permit because it's a repair. Shame on me if I needed to pull a permit to fix my drywall. I'll talk about the inspector that came out and what he said when he saw the job. And finally, the new sashes with dual pane glass was installed in the original casing. Okay, next picture, please. Yep, it's another view of a similar window, just to double make the point. Oh, no, not that one. It shows that's it. Yeah, that's it. And this is redundant. This is exactly what I just showed you, but another view of another window. Again, original wood sill was retained, original wood casing retained, original wood trim retained, and original drywall rot was repaired, and the new sashes and the dual pane was put in. So I now have dual pane windows that go up and down that are fire safe, and they actually work, but they look just like wood windows because they were made to match exactly. Okay, let's go ahead and show now picture 5. So again, I'm sorry, forgive me, picture 4. Thanks, you guys. Oops, see, when I organized my thing, I didn't put it right. Here we are looking at the outside of the window, and I have to point to this. I'm gonna show the audience, this white area where my son's left hand is, that's what you saw in the photo. Now it's shown, and you can see the texture on the wood, or sorry, mistake, on the vinyl that is simulating wood. The sills are all original. What's new is the part where the glass is, otherwise known as the sash. Okay, and now we'll go to the last picture. Thank you. So this is what the house looks like now. We have the correct front door color. We have all the peeling paint removed. The entire house was repainted. Again, I apologize for the condition that it was in. Incorrect window air conditioners removed. The 36-inch high guardrail was raised to 42 inches, but the guardrail wasn't touched. I just added 2 top plates so that from here to here, we added the 6 inches, but you can't even tell when you look at it. And you can kind of see it in the photo. 36-inch guardrail, okay, and then the spotlights were removed, all the landscape was restored, and all the windows were made to match. So what's the bottom line? And then I have 2 exhibits, and I'm gonna sit down and probably get thrown out. I know I would have shown myself out if I saw that earlier picture. The result of this restoration has improved the historical and architectural appearance of the property. The improvements follow the guidelines of the City of Anaheim and the State of California. The home is now safe to occupy and meets current building and safety codes. The Anaheim building inspector indicated that the windows were replaced like for like and cleared the property for a building permit. I have that in Exhibit 1, which I'll talk about in 1 second. And finally, the restoration was carried out wherein the, quote, new features match the old in design, color, texture, and other visual qualities, and, where possible, materials. Had I been able to replace the sashes with wood, I would have. But they weren't working because you got to put the ropes and the weights, and they wouldn't have been original. So I chose the vinyl, and I faux them out to look like wood. If that's wrong, I apologize to you publicly. So Exhibit 1 shows the inspector. He was there for about 10 minutes. He said, wow, this is beautiful. He said, go get your building permit. Oh, I'm good with it. That's Exhibit 1, a copy of the report that he made, a 1-sentence report. Exhibit 2 is a letter from the city on November 21st, and on page 2, I've outlined in red where it says, where possible. If it was possible, I would have done it, but I would have had to rip the windows out, and that would have destroyed the stucco, and God knows what else would I had to do. So with all that said, I rest my case. I'm very grateful for the time you took, and just to show the audience, the sashes, you all know what that is, the yellow part in the window that goes up and down. That's what I replaced. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for the applicant? Okay. Discussion? Yeah, that's a good question. Are there any speakers for this one? I suppose there probably are.
No further speakers.
We should still at least open the public hearing and then close it if there aren't any speakers.
Very good. I'll open the public hearing and no speakers, close it. Discussions, I believe Commissioner Castro has comments.
Mr. Termina, I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
So it would have been possible to replace it with wood, but you would have had to do additional work to it, correct?
I would have had to replace the casings, the trim, and the sills. I would have ripped the whole system out of the wall and put new system back in. And it wasn't about money for me. It wasn't about money. It was about safety and long-term. And if that's wrong, I'm trying to comply. So yes, I could have done that, but I didn't want to rip structurally and go into a whole nother, if you will, snowball.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle.
Nice to see you, Bill. I think this man has an idea, Bill Termina, how much I respect him and admire him, and you've done many good things in this city. And you've got a number of Mills Act houses. You still have the one over, but he did all of the Ruby's building, and you had some properties over there as well.
Yes, ma'am. In the Kramer building, this is really ironic.
That's true.
When we redid that, we put all new windows just like these. Sorry to interrupt you.
In the Kramer building?
Yes, ma'am. Oh, sorry. Okay.
Okay, all right, having said that, I want to say something in regards to one thing you did say having to do with repairing all the windows. with wood and removing all the casings and blah, 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 blah. The first house I bought in this city was the 1906 home on Chestnut Street, just a handful of blocks from here. Every single window, every single one of the wooden sash windows, the sash cords were broken. And I fixed every single one in that house myself.
Yes, you did.
I removed all the casings. It all had to be taken apart. Some of the windows had to be rebuilt because they were rotted. And it was done. And this was right about the time the city actually adopted the Mills Act. I didn't even know anything about the Mills Act. I knew I had a historic home and I wanted to keep it that way. Fast forward to the home I'm in now, I don't have wood windows, thank goodness. But I have the Mills Act. And I have also sat on the Historic Preservation Committee for over 20 years. I just stepped down last year as chair. And pretty much anybody with the Mills Act knows what they've got to do. And I think Amanda said it best when she started her comments, is that you were awarded the Mills Act. It is an honor. It is something special. It is a recognition by the city and the state that this house is something special. And everybody knows it. And the people who have it and who've worked hard to get it, a lot of them, some people have had to replace vinyl for wood because it's not acceptable. And I personally, cannot say yes to this because it'd be setting a precedence and just kind of, I don't want to say slap in the face, that may be a little strong, but to the people who have done what they can to keep their houses the way they are. So I just want you to understand that, Bill. Thank you.
Thank you. If I may just respond really briefly. The reason it's probably different is because my insurance company said, you cannot have single pane non-tempered. And I know the beautiful home, all the homes that you've touched, they have the single pane glass that's got the waves in it. They said, adios, no coverage. I'm not making excuses, and I don't disagree with you. Thank you.
Luis.
Yeah, I had a question to staff, and then reviewing the applicant's document that he sent to us, I guess it's the November 21st letter, planning and building sent to him. On the subsection 1 where it states the exterior alteration is consistent with the purpose and intent of the United States Secretary of the Interior standards, there's a subsection in there, parentheses number 6, deteriorated historic features shall be repaired rather than replaced. Where the severity of the deterioration requires the replacement of a distinctive feature, the new features shall match the old in design, color, texture, and other visual qualities, and where possible, materials. So I guess what I'm asking, Leonie, in that section where it says where possible, what does it mean? If the product materials are not available, that they're not manufactured anymore?
And I apologize, I don't have what you're reading from. Is that what the applicant passed out? Okay. While I'm looking at it, certainly if anybody from planning who deals with the Mills Act a lot more, I'm happy to look at it, but I just want to see what the reference is to.
I also don't have the package in front of me, but I believe it's what you're referring to. If, for example, there was a section of siding that needed to be replaced, some cases, the siding, the actual, it might have a slight roll at the top. They don't necessarily manufacture that same design of siding. It should be replaced with something as closely as possible.
And I will just say, the way this is written is these are guidelines. This was meant to provide some flexibility, but at the same time, put forward the intent of the Mills Act. So I can't give you a bright line of where possible, and that is likely why we're here tonight.
Got it, but I kind of wanted to follow up with what you just said, because I think you make a good point about where there is some leeway, but to the exact example that you said, right, if something's a more textured corner or a rounded corner, I think that is the specific intention of what it's written in that way. So I just wanted to get clarification on that. So thank you.
This question is for the staff. Is there any exceptions to the Mill Act?
Exceptions for like this example with the wood windows? Unfortunately, no. There is not anything that would allow staff to approve some sort of exception, especially because of the high visibility to the street. There might be in some cases where we've worked with property owners, if it's slightly less visible, to plant additional landscaping to help screen an addition, for example. That might not be consistent. But in the case of this one, there wouldn't be any sort of exceptions.
Just like for safety, there might be exceptions or not?
There's no noted exceptions in the Mills Act contract and agreement for anything related to safety.
All right, thank you.
Well, comment-wise, I sympathize. The energy-wise, safety-wise, insurance-wise, this stinks. But I think the Mills Act is kind of the Mills Act, so I will be voting to deny the appeal, but I do sympathize.
I can make the motion to confer with the planning director's decision to deny the appeal.
I'll second.
Six yes votes with one no vote. Commissioner Abdul Raham. The motion carries.
Decision, thank you. I'll make this right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have a workshop now. Hello, Nick. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you, Commissioner Walker. If you'll give me just a moment to pull up the presentation. Okay, good evening, Commissioners. My name is Nick Taylor. I'm Principal Planner. With me tonight, we have Heather Allen, who is the Acting Director, and Joe Alcock from the Public Works Department, as well as other staff members in the audience and the city's consulting team. The purpose of tonight's workshop is to introduce the draft general plan update project and program environmental impact report to the Planning Commission. Since this is a workshop, we're not asking the Commission to take any action this evening. We anticipate holding the public hearing later in March. So I'd like to start with an overview of the general plan, or a general plan, and its relationship to zoning. Staff will discuss the general plan updates and associated implementation actions. Next, we'll cover the environmental analysis and the public process. And lastly, we'll conclude with the next steps and provide an opportunity for questions and comments. State law requires each incorporated city and county to adopt a long-range plan called a general plan for its physical development. General plans are divided into chapters or elements that include goals and policies designed to provide decision-making guidance, generally for a 20-year time frame. 8 elements: land use, housing, circulation, conservation, open space, noise, safety, and environmental justice are all required. Anaheim's general plan was last updated on a comprehensive basis in 2004, with a number of incremental amendments as well as individual element updates since that time. The safety element was also recently updated in 2023. What we'll be covering tonight includes updates to the land use and circulation elements, as well as the new environmental justice element, which are all companion efforts to the housing element update also underway. With these updates, we continue to evolve the analysis, goals, and policies for the next 20 years to the year 2045. So zoning converts policies of the general plan into implementing regulations applicable to private property. For each general plan land use designation, there's at least one implementing zoning classification with associated use and development standards. For example, on the screen, you see 2 common general plan land use designations. We have low, medium density residential, as well as general commercial. The general plan sets policy parameters for low, medium density residential, providing housing development for up to 18 dwelling units per acre, and then it identifies 4 typical implementing zoning classifications. Title 18 of the Anaheim Municipal Code then, as the zoning code, contains by zoning classification all the regulations for use and physical development of a property. Understanding the relationship of the general plan and zoning code will be helpful as I move into reviewing the general plan updates and the implementing zoning actions. So there are 5 overarching objectives of this project, which you will hear more about through the remainder of the presentation. To address housing need, create additional development opportunities along corridors, create clear community design standards building on existing policy, align with various state requirements, and facilitate future streamlined environmental reviews. With respect to housing need, the city was assigned an allocation of facilitating production of over 17,000 units for the 8-year period ending 2029. Through our housing element process, the city identified sites that could either currently or through a general plan amendment or zoning action provide the identified remaining 10,000 units. These sites are called candidate sites. This project addresses all the implementing actions associated with the candidate sites. With respect to additional development opportunities on corridors, in 2019 and 2020, the city began working with the community in the area in and around Center City. The Center City corridors, or C3 project area, was generally bounded by East and West Streets and the 91 freeway on the north, and the Anaheim Resort and Platinum Triangle to the south. And it particularly focused along major corridors, including La Palma Avenue, Lincoln Avenue, Broadway, Ball Road, and Harbor Boulevard and Anaheim Boulevard to identify principles and opportunities for improvement. For these initial efforts, the C3 Vision Plan was completed in April of 2020. Building on the vision plan, the city began a planning effort for a specific plan to provide a regulatory framework that would build upon and improve conditions and attract economic investment, primarily along the corridors in the plan area. Ultimately, to create a regulatory framework that could be used citywide and gain efficiencies and consistency with environmental review, the C3 implementation plan, rather than a specific plan, was completed. The implementation plan provided a number of recommendations and specific actions to be implemented as part of the general plan update. This project addresses implementing actions associated with the C3 implementation plan. As a result, the project is comprised of multiple actions that the Planning Commission and City Council will consider later this spring. We'll be reviewing these components throughout this workshop. The land use element is a guide for the city's future development. It designates the distribution and general location of land uses, such as residential, retail, industrial, open space, recreation, and public uses. The land use element also addresses the permitted density, that would be number of housing units per acre, and the intensity, as site coverage and floor to area ratio, or FAR, of the various land use designations. The anticipated residential and non-residential build-out associated with the land use element updates has been updated to reflect growth projections, again, anticipated through 2045. The update introduces new land use designations, MU corridor, MU low medium, MU industrial, and institutional low. And it changes the existing institutional to institutional high. On tables LU2 and LU3, a minimum residential density for the MU medium and MU high designations is established. Additional implementing zoning is added to the corridor residential land use designations. The implementing zoning for MU urban core is changed to MU-UC, and the corresponding zones for the remaining mixed-use designations are updated or added. So with that, I'd like to introduce Joe Alcock. He's the Principal Transportation Planner, and he'll review the circulation element with you.
Thanks, Nick. Good evening, Chair Walker, members of the commission. At a high level, the circulation element is a location. It identifies the location and of existing and proposed transportation facilities throughout the city. It also specifies policies, programs, and actions which support safe and efficient movement of people and goods throughout the city. Next slide. The bulk of my presentation tonight is just going to be focused on the proposed changes that we have recommended for the general plan. Really, these focused on 4 big components. The first, we updated our traffic analysis model so that we could develop a traffic forecast and see what impacts, if any, the proposed general plan's land use and policy changes would have on the city's transportation systems. Then we updated the circulation elements goals and policies, which I'm going to cover in a little bit. They haven't been touched since 2004, so some of them are pretty dated. Next, based on the traffic forecast, we developed the future transportation network with modification recommendations. We didn't make a ton of changes. We mostly made minor tweaks to around the SR 91 on and off ramps near the Anaheim-Fullerton border, and then proposed to remove an extension of Weir Canyon down to State Route 241, as its development doesn't support that extension anymore. In terms of the bike network, we did make some minor changes to reflect recently approved projects like the OC Vive and some projects out along the Santa Ana Trail. Next slide. Oh, and we also made recommendations on addressing greenhouse gas and VMT reduction goals. On this slide, we identify the circulation elements vision and goals. Our vision is focused on 2 main components. The first is to maintain throughput and system performance here in the city. Our transportation networks work pretty good today, and we want to make sure that they keep working well in the future. Second component is kind of this newer concept on multimodalism. So ensuring that the city's transportation system isn't just entirely vehicular focused, that it's robust and it's able to provide for mobility needs of all users in the city. And then the circulation elements proposed goals that we updated are shown here, and I'll go through them. So first is to provide for and maintain both local and regional mobility, so focusing both on our local system and then connecting outside of our region to other cities, the freeway system, the transit system, et cetera. Supporting active transportation, so again, making sure that the city's transportation systems are multimodal, so that it can accommodate all users, whether they be moms with strollers, bike riders, cars, transit users, trucks, Amazon delivery vans, et cetera. Supporting public transit and ride sharing with our tourist economy and the state's greenhouse gas emissions requirements, it's critical that we continue to focus on integrating the various transit systems we have operating here in the city, while also being open to new operational models and technologies where appropriate. Supporting efforts to enhance transportation safety, developing a fiscally sound transportation system, adhering again to the state's greenhouse gas reduction requirements, and then finally supporting aviation. Those are all the main goals that we've updated in this update. And really these changes that we included in the general plan update are focused on conciseness, ease of understanding, removing the outdated policies, providing the city with some level of flexibility, and to reflect the recent changes in state law as well as best practices in planning since the last update. Next slide. And this slide is just an overview of the circulation element's main topic areas. In terms of the vehicular network, again, we maintain our focus on system performance and added considerations for emerging technologies. With regard to safety, we're prioritizing the city's local roadway safety plan as well as evacuation planning efforts. For complete streets and active transportation, again, providing much more emphasis upon these topics and the need for a robust and multimodal system for various modes. Public transit, again, highlighting existing and new services that are emerging, while also providing flexibility to look at new concepts like improving first and last mile connections. For greenhouse gas and VMT, it's meeting the state requirements. And then in terms of funding, we focused on recommending that the city look to secure outside funding resources to a large extent so that we can leverage our scarce resources and use outstanding funds to the maximum extent possible. We're also emphasizing the need to plan, develop, and implement projects that are fiscally constrained, so things that can be operated and maintained financially going forward. In terms of aviation, we're ensuring that we continue to adhere to state and federal requirements while also keeping an eye on newer technologies, so things like drones and vertiport discussions. And then with regard to goods movement, we remain focused on the transportation infrastructure to meet the city's economic needs while we acknowledge the influence that e-commerce is having on the economy. And then finally, on this slide, we did do technical analysis of all the proposed changes, both land use and policy-wise. And in terms of system performance, I want to say the technical findings are good news. We analyzed 154 roadway segments, 254 intersections, and we found that with these proposed changes and proposed land use and the policies, in general, the system's performance did improve. Under the current general plan, which we currently have, we showed 5 intersections that didn't meet our general plan performance policy. Under this update, we show 1, and that intersection, we believe, is more of an issue in terms of a long-range planning assumption within the model rather than an existing concern. Nevertheless, we'll continue to monitor it. It is a Caltrans intersection. We'll work with them to ensure that that one intersection remains in good functioning. We also looked at the transportation plan from a CEQA analysis, and we developed the VMT forecast, again, required by law. And with that analysis, we found that we did not trigger a significant transportation impact under CEQA. So overall, the circulation element and the proposed changes I've identified this evening, they perform well, no significant congestion or CEQA-related concerns at this time, and staff's comfortable with the proposed changes that are coming forward. With that, I'll conclude my overview and turn it back to Nick. Thanks.
Thank you, Joe. All right, I'll move on to the environmental justice element. State law requires local jurisdictions with disadvantaged communities to adopt a new environmental justice element when they are updating 2 or more elements of their general plan. While a standalone element is a new requirement, the city already has many goals and policies and other general plan elements that address the required EJ topics. Staff previously conducted a workshop to discuss the draft environmental justice element with the Planning Commission back in August 2022. The housing element, C3 implementation plan, and updates to other general plan elements as previously described require updates to the city's zoning code to ensure consistency and allow for the future implementation of policies and programs identified in the general plan update. Title 18 zoning of the Anaheim Municipal Code would be amended to add a new Chapter 18.12 mixed-use zones, the purpose of which is to define allowable land uses and property development standards for the mixed-use zone to produce healthy, safe, and attractive neighborhoods within the city, consistent with the Anaheim General Plan. The mixed-use zone encourages market-driven land use changes and infill development that allows for standalone residential, standalone non-residential, and mixed-use projects. The mixed-use zone implements the mixed-use corridor, mixed-use low medium, mixed-use mid, mixed-use medium, mixed-use high, mixed-use urban core, and mixed-use industrial general plan land use designations. The amendments also include new objective design standards in Chapter 1839, designed to ensure the quality and certainty for future development, codifying guidance that's currently in the community design element at a policy level. Objective design standards will apply to all multifamily and mixed-use developments in the city, in addition to the standards of the underlying base zone in which the project is located. The objective design standards address design topics such as site planning, mass and scale, materials and details, frontage types, and historic adjacencies. The objective design standards are written in clear, objective terms that is consistent with recent state housing laws. Implementation of the housing element and C3 implementation plan also requires changes to the general plan land use designations and/or zoning classifications to add or increase residential density on identified sites, including in addition to the currently permitted or planned non-residential development. The proposed project would update the general plan land use plan, figure LU4, and the zoning map with these changes, in addition to making the corresponding amendments and adjustments to the Beach Boulevard specific plan, the Anaheim Canyon specific plan, and the Platinum Triangle master land use plan. This exhibit shows the areas where parcel level changes are identified to occur on sites identified through either the housing element or the C3 implementation plan. So to reiterate, the changes add or increase residential density on identified sites, including and in addition to the currently permitted or planned non-residential development, providing owners with additional development options for their property. All of the components I just discussed are required environmental analysis under the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. CEQA is California law that generally requires state and local agencies as lead agencies to inform decision makers and the public about potentially significant environmental effects of a proposed project, and then to identify ways to reduce or eliminate those environmental effects. CEQA requires lead agencies to prepare an environmental impact report if there is a potential for a project to cause adverse environmental effects. An EIR contains detailed information on potential effects, measures to mitigate those effects, and an analysis of alternatives to the project. A program EIR is a type of EIR that is used to evaluate a project such as a general plan update or a specific plan, which includes a series of actions that may be considered as one large project and are related either geographically or as logical parts in the chain of contemplated actions. Use of a program EIR provides the opportunity to consider broad policy alternatives and program-wide mitigation measures, along with greater flexibility to address project-specific and cumulative environmental issues on a comprehensive basis. The program-level environmental review for the general plan update and C3 specific plan began with the notices of preparation and scoping meetings in February and March of 2022. The purpose of the notices of preparation and scoping meetings was to request input from agencies, residents, and interested parties on the scope and content of the environmental information that should be included in the PEIR. All public, agency, and/or tribal comments received during either scoping process have been incorporated into the draft PEIR, which was released for a 45-day public review period beginning on December 20th, 2024, and ending on February 3rd, 2025. An EIR can include up to 20 topics. Of the 20 topics, the program EIR concluded that the project would have no effects related to agricultural and forestry resources and mineral resources. That left 18 topics to be further analyzed in the draft program EIR. For each topic, the analysis evaluated the level of impact as less than significant with mitigation, or significant and unavoidable. Although the criteria for determining significance are different for each topic area, the environmental analysis applies a uniform classification of the impacts based on definitions consistent with CEQA and the CEQA guidelines. Of the 18 topics analyzed in the PEIR, 11 were found to be less than significant, with geology soils only requiring mitigation related to paleontological resources. 3 additional topic areas were found to be less than significant with mitigation. These are biological, cultural, and tribal cultural resources. As a matter of practice, the city has been implementing many conditions that relate to topics addressed by CEQA. Compliance with these standard conditions would further reduce negative impacts for future development. As a result, the city will be adopting these and other master standard conditions of approval that are applied to all development projects through the plan check review process as applicable as a component of the project actions. There were 3 topics which would result in significant and unavoidable adverse impacts. The first being air quality for both construction and operation. At the programmatic level of analysis, there are no feasible mitigation measures beyond the standard conditions. While the standard conditions would reduce the impacts would remain significant and unavoidable. Greenhouse gas emissions. The general plan update would focus growth in areas of the city where services already exist or can be expanded or extended to serve new, more intensive development. Policies included in the circulation element would further serve to guide development and transportation options, reducing VMT and related GHG emissions. The general plan update would result in a substantial decrease in GHG emissions, about 20%, but would not meet the 85% reduction goal by 2045 as established in Assembly Bill 1279. Therefore, GHG emissions are considered to be significant and unavoidable. Lastly, noise for both construction and operation. Implementation of general plan goals and policies, existing codes and regulations, and mitigation measures would reduce potential short-term and long-term noise impacts to the extent feasible. However, because specific project details are not yet known, impacts associated with construction and operational stationary noise would be significant and unavoidable. Regarding traffic noise, certain roadway segments within the city could experience excessive increases in traffic noise at build-out. So before we open for questions from the Planning Commission and comments from the public, I want to provide some resources as well as some next steps. Drafts of the general plan updates and implementing zoning actions were posted in December, and they remain available for review on the general plan update webpage. Contact information for the respective staff is also provided there. The draft program EIR and all supporting technical studies can be accessed from the general plan update PEIR webpage, in addition to being available for review at the Planning and Building Department here in City Hall, and then at the main library as well as branch libraries across the city. If the public would like to receive notices for the upcoming public hearings and are not on a notification list, they may subscribe through the general plan update PEIR webpage. Public agencies and the public are invited to comment on the content of the environmental analyses contained in the draft PEIR and can do so through February 3rd, 2025. And written comments should be sent to my attention. And that's my contact info on the screen. And just in summary, we look forward to coming back to the Planning Commission in March, as I had mentioned, as the culmination of multiple years of work across departments and with various stakeholder groups. As I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, this is a companion effort to the housing element update. Approval and adoption of this project will ultimately enable certification by the state of the housing element, because the general plan updates and implementing zoning actions fulfill the city's assigned regional housing need. And with that, that concludes my presentation. As I mentioned, we have our consultants and additional staff that are here in the audience, should you have any questions. So thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Any questions? No questions. I'm going to open the public hearing for.
I do.
Oh, you do. I thought, yeah, I thought that meant no.
I'm the
Sorry.
troublemaker here.
You can.
Okay, I remember the last general plan update and the extensive public outreach that was done. I don't see any of that in your plan. Is there public outreach going to be done?
I'll actually ask Heather to summarize. So this was started before my time working directly on the general plan update. So perhaps Heather can give some historical background on the outreach that was.
Certainly, yes. So as Nick presented, this is actually a compilation of many efforts, each of which had a associated stakeholder group and outreach process. So the candidate sites, which are part of the housing element, those came through a public process with the Housing Element Update Committee. Those are the sites that were identified, I think, as early as 2021, came through Planning Commission. City Council saw the first version of the housing element that went to the state. Those are the same sites that have moved forward during that process. The C3 implementation plan, as Nick mentioned, started with a vision plan and specific plan that had a separate stakeholder group and a number of outreach efforts associated with that. Joe's circulation element work had a separate public outreach component with that. Taken all environmental justice element also had a separate stakeholder and public outreach component as part of that project. Now that we're bringing them all together, for the properties that were identified in the parcel-specific map, again, all of those are getting essentially an additional option. It's not taking away anything that they could do today, and we'll be reaching out directly to all of those individual property owners with what this means for them prior to beginning the public hearing process.
Thank you for that. And you mentioned C3. I happen to live on Harbor Boulevard in the C3 area, and tonight's the first time I've ever heard of this. So much for that outreach. I don't mean to be snarky. I do have a question for you, Joe. You made comment about the last general plan where we had 5 intersections that were inadequate, and under the new guidelines or new, maybe you'll need to explain that to me, that we only have one intersection is at an inadequate service level. Sometimes I just have a hard time getting things out. So that has me wondering, did we make improvements to the intersection, or did we lower our standards?
So I'll say we didn't lower our standards. Our policy is the same in this update as it was in the last one. So that has not changed. What has changed is our traffic forecast. The traffic counts that we have were somewhat lower than in the initial going back to the previous general plan. So therefore, the longer term forecast was not as high. We also saw there were updates that have been implemented to the transportation system over the years since 2004, which obviously produced improvements as well as significant land use changes in kind of rethinking and kind of this more smart growth type of mixed use type of density where it's not as impactful to the system as the single family housing that was kind of standard in the old plan.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So the way, what you're basically saying is the way that the growth was anticipated is not exactly been the way it was anticipated, and through various other things, even though that maybe the intersection, we didn't go out there and, spend millions of dollars to fix the intersection, but because of changes in the way things were planned and the development that was done, the intersection's actually improved.
Yeah, and I'd also add there, there's a robust signal synchronization program that we've employed throughout the city that, you're not seeing physical improvements to the street, but those are providing notable improvements to level of service. Just not as obvious, but they do kind of help carry the load.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'd like to open the public hearing, and it looks like we have one person. You want to go ahead and?
Just a point of clarification, we can certainly take public comment, but this is a workshop, so it's not a public hearing in which the commission is rendering a decision, but certainly public comment is welcome.
Public comment, then. Sorry about that. One person, Mazit? Mazel?
That's okay.
Okay.
Kualito taki no toka masat ni tokan tekpat ni hamashika nochan nokan wehikali hutugna. I say good afternoon, buenas tardes. I'm speaking to you in a native language, Nahuatl, before the colonists came, some of your ancestors. But I'm very happy to be here making history. I read something about tribal, use of tribal something and cultural. I hope that has to do with some of the native people here because we've been fighting very hard to have Indigenous Peoples Day got passed through the City Council of Anaheim. And also we've been working with the Culture and Heritage Commission and Brian from the OC Vibe. And I mean, we do understand there will be some places where we can pray, where we can fast and practice, where it won't be entertainment, and some will be entertainment, but I just want to thank you all. I don't know any of you, you don't know who we are, but keep doing what you're doing, and I'm very happy to see more desert plants and not green grass because there's no water in California. And so I know Governor Newsom signed off and worked with federally recognized tribes along with Senator Ramos, our first male Native American, to pass AB 3074, 1821, and 1074. These bills as to tackle racial mascots. And it's tied to the environment, to the ecology, and many things that you guys are doing. And with time, you will see changes coming. But thank you all for your work that you're doing. And we are the Tribal Council of the Mexica, Nahuatl Aztec people. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Nope. Anybody in the audience want to speak?
Oh, he left.
Very good. Oh, we'll stop the public comments, and that's it. There's no applicant. So thank you very much, Nick. Thank you. Is there anything I missed?
Not with respect to the workshop, but I think slightly out of order on your script, we did skip over the agenda item to appoint a new vice chair.
Yeah.
So before we conclude, I do want to make sure we do that this evening.
Absolutely. That is the next item. We are reorganizing as to the vice chair. Do we have any nominations for the vice chair?
I'll nominate Commissioner Trent Martin.
Anybody else? Any other nominations? Very good. Close the nominations, and
We're closed by nominations by a vote.
okay. Anyone want to make a motion to vote? I guess yes.
So there was a motion to close the nominations. And a second? Second. And please vote. Thank you.
7 yes votes, the motion carries.
So now we'll actually vote on the one nomination.
Thank you, Leonie.
7 yes votes, the motion carries.
Thank you very much. Any updates? Scott?
Chair Walker, at the next Planning Commission meeting on February 10th, we will have an automobile repair facility for you to review, and we will take nominations to fill the vacant seat for the underground conversion subcommittee. So we'll take nominations amongst yourselves for that. Tomorrow night at the City Council meeting, the City Council will be considering the transitional and supportive housing amendment. And that's all I've got tonight.
Anybody else? Very good. We're done.